Peterhof Palace was founded by Tsar Peter the Great in the 18th century. The palace was originally built as a summer residence for Russian kings and nobles. Construction of the building began in 1709 and was completed 10 years later. After several renovations and reconstructions, Peterhof Palace became more beautiful and luxurious, and was finally inaugurated as a museum in 1918. The most beautiful residence of the Tsars and a true symbol of the Imperial era. This magnificent palace and park with its famous fountains were built by Peter the Great, who planned to beat Versailles. Peterhof in 1705 to 1755. In the early 1700s, the original Peterhof appeared quite different from today. Many of the fountains had not yet been installed, and the entire Alexandrine park and upper gardens did not exist. What is now the upper gardens was used to grow vegetables, and its ponds, then numbering only 3-4 fish. The Samson Fountain and its massive pedestal had not yet been installed in the sea channel, and the channel itself was used as a grand marine entrance into the complex. Perhaps the most important change augmenting Peter's design was the elevation of the Grand Palace to central status and prominence. The Grand Palace was originally called simply Upper, and was hardly larger than any of the other structures of the complex. The addition of wings, undertaken between 1745 and 1755, was one of the many projects commissioned from the Italian architect Bartolomeo Rastrelli by Elizabeth of Russia. Likewise, the Grand Cascade was more sparsely decorated when initially built. Peterhof in 1941, modern day. Peterhof, like Tsars was captured by German troops in 1941 and held until 1944. In the few months that elapsed between the German invasion of the Soviet Union and the appearance of the German army, employees were only able to save a portion of the treasures of the palaces and fountains. An attempt was made to dismantle and bury the fountain sculptures, but 3/4, including all of the largest ones, remained in place. On September 23, 1941, German troops captured Peterhof. 2 weeks later, on October 5, 1941, Soviet troops tried to recapture the town and blocked the highway by naval landing. 510 Marines of the Soviet Baltic Fleet landed on the beach of the neighboring park of Alexandria but faced a heavy fire from the Germans. The commander of the operation was killed, all landing troops became disorganized, one landing craft was sunk and another one missed. Despite Soviet attempts to cover the landing forces by coastal artillery from Kronstadt, they were quickly suspended because of lack of connection with the landing troops. Evacuation attempts also failed due to heavy German artillery shelling. Only one Marine was picked up from the water. The Peterhof landing operation failed and all landing troops were cut off from the shore and surrounded. Some of them reached the lower gardens and fought until the bitter end, including hand-to-hand combat. The last pockets of resistance were destroyed on October 7. Several dozen German shepherd dogs were released into the gardens to find the hiding Marines. Many of the wounded Marines were mauled to death and several were captured. The occupying forces of the German army largely destroyed Peterhof. Many of the fountains were destroyed, and the palace was partially exploded and left to burn. Restoration work began almost immediately after the end of the war and continues to this day. The lower park was reopened to the public in 1945. The name was changed to Petrof Peter's Palace in 1944 as a result of wartime anti-German sentiment and propaganda, but the original name was restored in 1997 by the post-Soviet government of Russia. The purpose of Peterhof was as a celebration and claim to access to the Baltic, while simultaneously, Peter the Great was also expanding on the Black Sea littoral. Thus a brief review of the history of Peterhof. Don't forget to also visit the source website of the article that I have listed in the description column. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully useful.